Hello, everyone. How are you? Welcome to episode 435 of the No Sugarcoating Podcast. I'm your host, Amber Romaniuk. And today I have a special guest. The Ego Mind is joining me today live on this show. Well, recording, of course, but today I really wanted to record the episode where we have a conversation with the ego, because I think it's really important for us to build a deeper awareness and understanding of the ego, some of the things it says, how the ego behaves and shows up and wants us to behave and show up, to just help us be able to catch it more and live more in our power. Because living in the ego all the time is honestly not fun. It's very draining and very exhausting. And I want you to be more in your power so you can just live a life that you love. So we're going to dive into that today. But how are you? Happy long weekend to those of you in Canada and the USA. September is here. How, holy moly. I personally love the change in season. I love fall. I can't wait for the leaves to start changing color and the crisp air and pumpkin spice lattes, not from Starbucks. I'm going to be ripping apart the Starbucks menu on my Instagram. Stay tuned. But like the homemade variety that has no garbage and all ingredients you can pronounce. I'm going to actually make some pumpkin spice latte ice cream, which I'm really excited about. Who wants the recipe? But I hope you're enjoying your day wherever you are in the world. And thank you for being here with me. I'm just sending you all so much love and so much gratitude that you're here. And it doesn't matter if you are man or woman, because the ego, we all have one. Doesn't matter what sex you are. We all have an ego. And this will benefit you and everyone you know. So feel free to share it with whoever you think it would benefit. But today we're going to have a conversation with the ego mind, and we're going to talk about how the ego mind influences emotional eating. And I'm going to give a lot of different examples, everything from unworthiness to diets, to emotional eating, to the weight, to people pleasing, to comparison, to lack, and examples of things the ego would say and what it looks like when we give our power away and how do we take it back. And really, it's about mastering your ego to help you overcome emotional eating and overcome a lot of the things that we struggle with in our lives, because that voice can be such a douche. Like, it's just the honest truth. It can, until we start to really see the value in building awareness with it. And then guess what? It becomes a great teacher, to be honest with you. And it really shows us where we have insecurity, where our inner child wounding still exists, where we have experiences where we were hurt, abandoned, taken advantage of in the past, and we still get triggered now. So we're going to dive into all of that right away. Of course, before we do, just a couple of key announcements. The show notes for today's episode can be found at amberapproved.ca/podcast/435. And if you're watching on YouTube, in the links in the description below. You all may want to watch on YouTube or rewatch this on YouTube, because you're going to see a difference in like expression and stuff with my face if you want to watch me talk about this for the time we have, or you can listen and tune into the differences in tone and expression with the ego versus being in power. So as you listen to this today, if you're like, oh my gosh, my ego is so there and so big and so in control, and I'm so honestly tired of it, and I'm tired of my ego running the show. I'm tired of my ego convincing me to emotionally eat. I'm tired of my ego pushing me to people please. I'm tired of living in insecurity with my body. I'm tired of people pleasing and overgiving to others and then resenting them and myself. I'm tired of this contributing to my bloating, my gut issues, my hormone imbalances, et cetera, tired of this lowering my frequency and blocking what I can manifest. I want help with this. Amber, can we work together on this? Of course we can work together on this and whatever else is going on for you. So feel free to reach out and book a 30-minute body freedom consultation at amberapproved.ca if you want to connect and talk about mastering your ego together, and also receiving support to work on the physical, emotional, energetic, and spiritual aspects of your healing, of course. This is something that I've been working on mastering for the last 14 and a half years of my life, and will continue to do so, because it's always a learning and evolution when we're dealing with the mindset and the ego. So that is available. And we've also opened up enrollment for Kick the Sugar, which is the 5-week course to help you curb your sugar cravings and gain relief from them, balance your blood sugar, and feel more empowered with your relationship with food. I'm not going to go into too many details today. If you want all the details, it's a live course. We start first week of October. It's 5 weeks and it's going to be incredible. And it is an incredible deal. Early bird rate of $149 USD for the whole program, all the sessions, all the bonuses, all the worksheets, Voxer support for 5 weeks, which is like having me as a one-on-one coach in your back pocket in a group. And it's regularly $222 USD. So that is on right now. So the link is available at amberapproved.ca/podcast/435, or you can go to the online program page, click Kick the Sugar, and come and join us. It's going to be amazing. We already have some incredible women enrolled. And I just have to share a quick little snippet from a success story. So I connected with my client Jessica last week and we recorded a video success story. You can check out the whole thing at amberapproved.ca/success-stories if you want to watch it. It's always beautiful to witness the energy and emotion live in video. And I asked Jessica in the success story, I asked her, I'm like, how does it feel to overcome binge eating? And she was just like, it feels so free. She said it was such a burden that it has, lifted off of her shoulders. And, I think that that's just so empowering when we can clear that out and have it open up space and energy to live a more expanded and amplified life. So if you want to go watch the rest of it, you can, but I just wanted to share those things as we dive in today. And some of your egos may be triggered right now going, oh my God, Amber, do you have to talk about all of this before we get into the episode? I just want to listen to the episode. I hear your egos. I hear them. And I am also running a business and I always have a lot to share. So sometimes my intros will be a little bit longer and sometimes they'll be a bit shorter. That's just how we roll. They have the time. We have the timestamps in the show notes. So if you want to fast forward, you can. But sometimes I like to talk a little bit about personal life. Like I know fall isn't very personal, but I love me a good homemade pumpkin spice latte, but I don't put caffeine in it. I just put like the cinnamon and all the stuff. Anyways, let's talk about the ego. So let's first talk about how the ego mind influences emotional eating, because I know a lot of you that are listening are dealing with some form of emotional eating, food addiction, binge eating, binging and purging. And I'm just sending you so much love and so much love and healing if you are. And I just want you to know that if you are dealing with any level of this, no matter how long or how intense or not intense it is, that you have the power to deal with it and overcome it and heal from it. As I always say, we come to earth to learn self-love. It is one of the main lessons we come to earth to learn. And a lot of us chose our souls anyway, which for some of you might be hard to believe. And you're like, your ego's coming in and going, my soul, why the heck would my soul choose? What kind of accent am I going into? I love accents, by the way. Like my hubby is from the East Coast and I love his East Coast accent. And I love the Texas, like Southern, and I get to connect with so many amazing women all over the world. And I can always like kind of pinpoint a little bit of where people are from. And then people say, we can totally tell you're Canadian. Side note, but yeah. So essentially, I know it can be hard to believe that our soul designed our life to put us through suffering, but we're on an evolutionary journey and our soul, I really believe, is here to help us learn lessons. And goodness, have I ever learned a lot that I can now share with all of you beautiful souls, right? So I want to help understand the ego mind and how it influences emotional eating, because it is a massive influence on your self-sabotage with food. And if we think it's just about having willpower or trying harder, or trying another diet, or just knowing our triggers and then having like 5 self-care tools to work through them, well, those are all things we can do. I don't suggest the diets or the willpower because those don't work, but the self-care tools and the awareness of triggers is really important. However, learning how to manage and navigate your ego mind is number one, because your mind is often the one thing that's in the way of you going and giving in or not. And it's the justifications, the stories, the reasons why you should, that often will pull us in and convince us of that. So let's first talk about what the ego mind is. Long story short, some people call it the shadow, but the ego mind is it lives in the mind. Okay. So it's this part of us that lives in the mind, and it is the analytical, critical, negative part of us. The true us truly lives in our heart when we're in power. And then when we give our power away, we really go into our head. So if you're like, oh, I'm in my head a lot, and it's not bad, right? I'm not saying, oh, it's bad if you're in your head all the time, you're analytical. No, not necessarily. However, we think too much and we don't feel enough. And the intuition was forged out of love, and it never lies and it always has our back, but the ego can deceive us. The intuition won't. The intuition lives in the heart. The ego lives in the mind, and the ego will often convince us into a lot of circumstances that can cause us a lot of unnecessary suffering and struggle and block us from what we really want. And so that's one of the reasons why doing this is so powerful. So the ego mind is programmed. So our subconscious mind is fully open when we are born, and it takes in everything. The subconscious mind can't recognize real from false. So your subconscious mind is very heavily programmed from age 0 to 7, especially, and you take in a lot of your values, perceptions, beliefs, behaviors, all these different things you inherit from your family, your upbringing, Hollywood, the media, school, those closest to you, etc. Okay, we all have been programmed. We can have positive influences that program us and negative influences that program us. So maybe I'm a positive influence that's helping you shift your mindset and program good things into your mind. And maybe, I don't know, the news or a horror movie or someone that's really negative is a negative programming into your mind, right? Just to give examples. So examples of what it feels like to give our power away to our ego. Well, when you give your power away to your ego, you often go into fear, worry, anger, frustration, jealousy, comparison, hatred, grief, guilt, lack, embarrassment, shame. Shame and guilt are two of the most dense, low frequency emotions that we can feel. And the ego wants you to stay in that state. Victimhood mentality, poor me, why is this happening to me? Why, all that kind of energy, that is ego. And it's not to say we can't ever get upset. However, it is all about how we choose to react or respond to things that are brought our way. I truly believe life happens for us. And I know sometimes in the moment when we're really struggling or something not so great happens, it's like, why would this happen to me? However, when we go through those things and we look back, we often will go, I see why that happened. And I'm actually really grateful that it did. It's like when I was struggling with the binge eating, I'm like, why is this my life? This sucks. And then thereafter, of course, was like, now I see why I had to go through that, right? So if we can learn how to manage our mind and stay more in our power through stress, through unexpected circumstances, through things out of our control, through what can feel like struggles, it really helps us a lot more. So when we are in giving our power away to our ego, like I said, we'll go into those negative emotions. We'll go into victimhood, poor me. I don't even like to affirm things like negative things happening, right? Why is the world being this way with me? All that kind of stuff. I'll never be able to lose the weight. I'll never be able to heal. All that negative self-talk and limiting beliefs. Other examples would be like going into lack mentality, feeling contracted when you pay your bills, being stressed about money. As soon as we do that, we're giving our power away. Trust me, every year when I have to pay my taxes to the government, I have my moment of getting really pissed off. Like, I don't want to give them my money. I don't like them. And I don't feel they're doing anything good for this country. Not that I want to get political, but I feel like a lot of you know that I'm not really a huge fan of our government here, and that's okay. I feel like we'd be better off without one. I feel like most places would, to be honest with you. Anyways, so then I want to have my contracted moment. My ego's like, I don't want to freaking give my money to the government. I'm like, okay, well, I don't really want them to come after me. So I'm going to be grateful that I made this money, and I'm going to trust that it's going to go somewhere, that it's actually going to be used for good things. And then I have to let it go and move on. Right. But that's an example of my ego kicking up. So lack, money, there's all kinds of things. I'm going to get more specific into examples and ego chatter right away. Now, your body can trigger your ego to get really upset. Okay. We're going to talk about that too, whether it's symptoms or weight gain or seeing yourself or whatever. But those are just some examples so you can start to tune into what it feels like to give your power away to your ego. Now, physically or sensations in the body, you may notice like your chest get tight, your body contract, or maybe you even feel your energy field contract. One interesting thing about learning more about energy, because it's invisible, but you can feel it. It's more subtle than the ego. It's very obvious when you start to build awareness around giving your power away to your ego and then taking it back. Energy is more subtle because it's in the beginning, as you're starting to feel into your energy field and feeling what it feels like to contract and give your power away to your ego. it's more subtle, but the thoughts are more intense. You can feel the thoughts and it's like, oh, this is really uncomfortable to feel, but the contraction in your energy field doesn't feel as intense, versus when you take your power back and your energy field expands again, which is important for us to receive love, money, all the things we want to manifest. So what I'm really practicing, I'm playing with energy a lot, and I'm playing around a lot with, well, what helps keep my field open? What helps me stay open to receive and consistently manifest the things that I desire? And really like managing my ego and having less tolerance for it kicking a stink is one of those things. But tightness in the chest and knot in the stomach, contraction, your energy field, your shoulders get tight and come closer together. You have a pain in your head that comes in, you have a drop of energy, you feel anxious all of a sudden. These are all physical sensations of you giving your power away, and your frequency is dropping. Now, when we take our power back, okay, we often have a boost of energy. The shoulders sit back more. We feel more relaxed. The body feels less tense and tight and more open. Your energy field opens back up so you can receive more and manifest more of what you want. So as an aside, if you're feeling blocked manifesting what you want, whether it's money, clients, success, business, love, healing, if you're constantly in a state of contraction, you're constantly going into lack, you're constantly affirming things you don't want, and you're constantly emotionally attaching to those things and going, we'll see it happen again. I told you. You are literally manifesting what you don't want, and you're letting your ego run the show, because that's the state you're allowing yourself to be in. So if you want to change that and change your reality and your world, the mindset ego work and doing this healing is so powerful, because I never used to know anything. I was like this. I was always in victimhood mode, always causing conflict and drama and getting into arguments and all kinds of stuff. So I was there 150%, and it's okay. Love and compassion to those parts of us. But when we take our power back, we're calmer, our body's calmer, the symptoms calm down. We feel in the mind or emotionally, we feel more calm, peace, ease, grace, love, compassion, nurturing, gratitude, abundance, joy, happiness. We feel certain of ourselves. We trust ourselves. We have faith in ourselves and our path. We're more likely to surrender and let go of control with certain things and let life take the wheel, let the universe take care of us in circumstances. We learn how to listen to our body more. We become more in tune, and things happen more easily for us. The body heals more easily. We overcome self-sabotage more easily. The body releases weight more easily. We're more magnetic, right? Your frequency goes up, and it's like people want to hang out with more because they're like, oh, I love your vibe. It's the energy you're emitting. So when it comes to emotional eating, how the ego really influences is the justifications for why you should do it, whilst it's also telling you shouldn't do it, because God forbid you gain another pound and, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're doing that again. You need to have more willpower. Like, that voice is so intense sometimes. So let's talk about some of the examples of circumstances. And I'm going to just share experiences that I went through where I just vividly remember my ego kicking in. I just didn't know I had the ego yet at the time. I actually started learning about my ego after I stopped emotionally eating, but it really helped me, because then there was like starting a business and dealing with money and not having the greatest relationship with it, and a lack mentality and not knowing how to charge my worth or set boundaries, and all kinds of other things that came in. When we have fears and insecurities come up, this is actually where the ego is the teacher, trying to shine the light on these fears and insecurities, worries, to bring to our attention in hopes that we'll work on them and clear them so that we can live more in our power, in our freedom, and less in our giving our power away to our ego. And a lot of what kicks up a stink with the ego, our past experiences that our wounded inner child is still hurt and upset about and hanging on to. And your wounded inner child could have been you last week. It could have been you when you were 5. It doesn't matter where in your lifespan it's been, but it's things where you got hurt, you were upset, you got abandoned, you got called names, you were bullied, you may have been abused or assaulted. And my heart goes out to you for whatever you've been through. Or maybe your mother made a comment, or someone made a comment about your weight, or you were trying so hard to get A's, but your parents were like, well, that's nice, but you need to get A+, and that really hurt your worth and your confidence, right? So then now your story is nothing's ever good enough and I'm not good enough. These are stories the ego makes for us. And then we latch on to these identities and we believe that this is who we really are. when it's not who we really are. And it's just that it's been programmed and we identify with it. And then, of course, like with anything, with repetition, we start to even believe lies and things that aren't true about us, like not being good enough, not being worthy, that you can't heal your relationship with food. These are all false unless you believe them to be true. And if we condition and affirm negative things for long enough, we do believe them, and then we shape our world around it. And I really believe we create our realities. Just there's so much proof of that every day for me and my lovely man in our world, that we are living a blessed life because we are choosing to work on our ego and show up and deal with that stuff. And it's taken time to get to that point, right? But the proof is in the pudding. It is there. We can totally create amazing lives if we're willing to do our deeper work. And sometimes it's not so easy. However, it always pays off and is always rewarding. So let's give some examples of ego thoughts and chatter. So when I was struggling with binge eating and emotional eating, and some of the things my clients go through as well, here's a prime example. So say you have a trigger come up and you're like, oh, I've been listening to the podcast. Like, oh, I have this trigger come up. I'm feeling like overwhelmed. I'm feeling, maybe you're a sensitive empath and you're like, I'm feeling overwhelmed. And I had this negative interaction with someone and it really upset me and I'm really hanging on to it. And so you're like, okay, I'm going to go meditate, or I'm going to go write in a journal. I'm going to try to do some kind of self-care to help me work through this trigger. And in the back of your mind, through thinking all of that and through doing the self-care, your ego's like, what's the point? Who cares? You're going to give into the food after you finish this anyway. You're still going to go to the food. So why don't you just quit this? Because this isn't working. Just go to the food. You don't have the willpower to like not give into this. Who do you think you are? You're not powerful. Like, this is the dialogue. The ego is mean sometimes, or all the time, until we can see it as a teacher. And even then I'm like, you're giving my power away to my ego again. What? Sneaky sometimes, but that's an example. Like, this isn't going to work. Just who cares? Go give into food. You had a bad day. You feel like crap. You're overwhelmed. You're upset. It's the only thing that's going to make you happy. That's the ego. And so we can have all the self-care practices. Okay. We can have all the self-help books in the world. We can have, all the clean food in the fridge. However, this is so important, and I cannot emphasize this enough. If we do not deal with the ego mind, who's running the show until you learn how to take your power back from it, it is very difficult to fully overcome emotional eating, binge eating, any emotional relationship with food. It's difficult to overcome people pleasing and perfection and all or nothing mentalities. It's difficult to build your self-worth and feel worthy and good enough and clear out your insecurities. It is difficult to attract what you want and create your reality the way you want, because this voice keeps coming in and crushing your progress and interrupting you and steering you back into self-sabotage. It thrives off your suffering, and its ultimate goal is full self-destruction. It does not want you to thrive. I cannot stress and express that enough. It's not the true you. The true you lives in your heart that wants you to thrive, supports your greatest good, and it takes time to reprogram and undo the old and build the new. And it's fully possible. Are you here for it? Because I am definitely here to talk about it and teach and coach and support and help any of you through it that feel resonant. So if you've been struggling with your relationship with food, I had a woman reach out to me a couple of weeks ago, and she messaged me and she said, hey, like, I'm really struggling with binge eating. It's something I've struggled with for a long time. I have body image issues. I'm people pleasing. I have food fears. I keep trying the diets, all or nothing mentality, like all the stuff I talk about here. And she's like, I don't think I need a lot of help though. Like, I think I just need someone to tell me not to binge. Like, can we just check in every day and I'll just tell you when I'm feeling vulnerable to binge? You can just tell me not to do it. And I said to her, I'm like, thank you so much for sharing everything. And I'm like, with all due respect, that isn't going to help you clear out anything. Because if you're not willing to deal with your ego mind, which is fueling the all or nothing and fueling the binges and fueling your food fears, and you don't reprogram that and learn how to live more in your power, you can have all the check-ins for me to tell you to not binge in the world, but I'm not going to teach you anything, and you're not going to gain anything, and you're going to just be stuck and think that this support doesn't work. I said it would do us both a disservice if that's all I gave you. But we can't make anyone be ready to deal with their ego or do the deeper work. That's a decision you've got to make for yourself. the ego is often the thing that will talk people out of going on a healing journey. So how the ego mind influences emotional eating. Well, maybe you've booked a consultation. Maybe you've considered reaching out for support. And then, you consider reaching out for the support and getting the help. And part of you is so excited that's like, oh my God, you need this, do this, please. Like, we want freedom. And then your ego's like, as if that's going to work. Nothing's going to work. What if you book in and you spend the money and then you fail and then it's another waste of money? But what if you fail? Oh my gosh, that's the ultimate. You can't fail again. You failed enough times on all the diets. You can't fail again, right? You can't do this because if you heal and you step into your power, then other people might not like you because you're going to change, and people don't like when people change, and then you might lose out on relationships. So don't bother. Maybe hearing about certain costs of programs triggers your ego and you get emotionally triggered about money and your money stories come up. That's too much. How can she charge that? I can't believe, right? That's all ego. Trust me. I've had my ego get triggered by certain things with money. And then I'm like, I got to own that because that's my insecurities. That's not the other person's fault. So when we learn to master the ego, it is ultimate taking responsibility for our stuff. And a lot of people don't want to do that. People would rather blame, right? So when I used to have a crappy retail job like 15, 16 years ago, and I would be at work and I sprained my ankle and I had to walk slower across the floor, and I got written up because I wasn't walking urgently fast enough across the floor. I got so upset. And I went home and I'm like, I'm binging tonight and it's my boss's fault because they wrote me up. And how could they do that? Like, I can't walk faster. I have a sprained ankle. And I blamed my binge on my boss. And it's like, okay, yes, getting written up upset me, but me choosing to go and binge and hurt myself because of what someone else wrote on a piece of paper, I needed to own that and I didn't. That's my responsibility to own. Feeling through, getting upset. And then I went back and had a conversation and said, I don't think this is fair. So I was out of my power when I binged because I blamed her and was like, I'm going to go do this. And then I was like, that didn't do anything. Now my ankle's worse because now it's more inflamed because I just binged. Right. And then I went back in my power and I was like, I don't think it was fair that you wrote me up. I literally have an injury. You know about this. My sense of urgency is not going to be as fast. Can you please get rid of that? And she did. Right. But that's an example. I'd blame my bosses if I had a negative interaction. Be like, it's their fault that I'm binging. It's their fault. They're the trigger. Okay, well, maybe they're the trigger, but it's my choice to choose to keep coping with food and not actually owning my emotions and releasing the anger, the frustration, the fear. Oh my God, what if I get fired? And letting all that go. I used to have a massive fear of getting fired when I worked for other people. And I totally manifested it in the last job I ever had working for somebody else because I kept focusing so much energy on it. So I worked at a health clinic and I was a receptionist, and I just never got really the best vibe from one of the owners. And the last 2 months I worked there, I just had this massive fear of getting fired. And every time I heard her come into the office, I just got anxiety, and I was such a people pleaser. And like, I showed up and I did such a great job there. And I was hoping that they were going to actually hire me as their natural nutritionist. And I'm so freaking glad that it didn't work like that. And the universe totally had my back. Thank God I got out of there. But one day she brought me into her office. She's like, you're fired. And I'm like, why? And she's like, well, not any reason. We're just letting you go. And I was like freaked out. I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to make money? Like, I can't tell anyone I got fired, blah, blah, blah. But then my business started, and then I got into the right space, started things. And I didn't want to have to work under somebody else. And the universe was like, if you stay here, you're not going to get it your way. You're going to be controlled. And you don't want that. You don't want to feel suppressed in your business trying to help people. And so sometimes if we're resisting getting out of a circumstance out of fear, because we don't know what else is there, we fear that nothing better is going to come along, or lack, or whatever that is, like, we'll get forced out of the role, whether we're fired, we quit, something happens, right? Because the universe is truly always trying to conspire to support our greatest good. It's just that we have the ego come up, right? But I would blame others for my triggers, and it was their fault. And that's that lack of ownership and responsibility, right? Even if someone else upsets you, you're still choosing to go to the cupboard and eat the food, or go to the store and buy the food and eat it. That is your choice. Now, it's a lot deeper than that, because heck, it's not just as cut and dry sometimes to stop eating. I know that for a fact. I went through all of that. There is addiction, there's dopamine highs, there's patterning in the brain. There's so many cravings and blood sugar things and things that are fueling and governing the urge to go to food and give into it. It's not just as cut and dry as not eating the food, like I was told once. So all the compassion in the world for you, because it's a multi-layered complex behavior. But the ego mind influences us and goes in the spectrum of like, oh, well, you've had a bad day. You should totally just go eat your favorite food, like reward yourself. It'll help you feel better, right? It also is that all or nothing mentality where it's like, oh, well, you already ate that. You had that energy bite, Amber. You had that cupcake. Your day is ruined. You ruined your diet again. Oh my God, it's an F it day. Just go eat whatever you want. Go eat whatever you want. Like, start again tomorrow. You've already messed up your diet. You already failed. Shame on you. I can't believe you did that again. So you're going to the store on the way home. You're buying all your favorites and you're going to eat. And then tomorrow we'll try again. That was the constant. Oh my gosh, the all or nothing mentality. The all or nothing mentality. So it justifies why you should emotionally eat and tries to talk you into it. And then at the same time, it beats you up and shames you once you give in. It's like, I can't believe you did that again. You said you weren't going to do that again. You have no willpower. You suck. You're never going to change. You're never going to heal this. This is why you're alone. This is why you have no money. This is why you're not happy, because you don't have willpower. You need to try harder on your diet. This is why you'll never lose the weight. Like, oh, it's just so heavy. But it doesn't have to be. So the longer we stay in the ego, okay, the more we hang on to the guilt and shame that I binged again or emotionally ate again, the harder we are on ourselves for it. That can trigger more emotional eating. And I used to do that. I'd hang on to it and I wouldn't forgive myself and I wouldn't learn from it. And then I just would hang on to it and hold a grudge against myself. And then I get so upset and overwhelmed that I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want to feel good. Let me get the food. So it can fuel more triggers. And so if we don't deal with that voice, right, that is a voice that is really dictating your behaviors. Your beliefs and thoughts dictate your behaviors and the way you do or don't show up in the world. And if we have been heavily programmed to have certain thoughts and beliefs and coping mechanisms, it's going to take some time to dismantle those and shift. So try to have compassion for yourself and for this voice, and be excited that you can change it, because it is a ride to learn about your ego and learn how to take your power back and live more in your power. And I have grown so much and I've witnessed so much growth in my hubby. And like, it's so great that we both know about our ego, because we'll be like, oh, my ego. And then we'll talk about it and we have such great conversations and it helps us grow closer. We never have bad arguments. We never yell at each other. We would never call each other names, because there is a deep respect. And even if one or both of our egos are there, it's just, that's the power of doing the deeper healing, is you would never do that to the person you love. And we can have really good conversations because we know when our ego comes in. When you get an argument with someone and it just blows up, it's ego versus ego. And oftentimes you're triggering each other and it just gets worse. So if you don't deal with that, it can cause a lot of conflict in your relationships, your work, your careers, your business, all these areas, including the one you have with yourself. So let's give some examples, a conversation with the ego mind. Let's give some examples of things the ego would say or convince you to do or not do in these different circumstances. Okay. So why don't we start with diets? Diets. Okay. So I'm going to walk you through the experience of the vicious cycle of diets and emotional eating. Okay. So say you've just emotionally ate again, maybe you've lost control for a couple of weeks or a month, and then you get on the scale and the number's gone up. And here's what the ego has to say. And whether or not you say it out loud or it's just in your mind, and you like gasp and your ego's like, oh my God, you gained weight. You gained weight. You're supposed to lose weight. You have a wedding in 2 weeks. Half your closet doesn't fit again. What's wrong with you? You failed on that diet again. What is so wrong with you? You gained weight. Your day is ruined. Might as well call in sick. Cancel your date tonight. There's no point in going out. Scale went up. And I could get like, there's really mean things you could say about yourself. Like I used to be so mean to myself. Like, you're so fat, your stomach, so bloated and your thighs. Oh, so ugly. I dislike saying those things out loud because I don't feel that at all anymore. And I just don't like saying it. But just to give you examples, you're never going to be good enough. You're never going to find love. Who's ever going to love you? Right? Like these are the things the ego says. Well, if you could have stuck to that diet, you'd have lost the 10 pounds or the 20 pounds, right? So you emotionally eat, you get on the scale, you have this freak, and then you're like, I need to figure out, I need to have control with food. You need to have control with food. You need to go find the next diet. Get your laptop out, Google fastest ways to lose weight, get your credit card out. Oh, look at this one. And this feeds the ego, those success story testimonials, the before and after weight loss photos, right? The promise of success. Endorsed by Oprah. Oh my God, I have to do this. This is endorsed by Oprah. Red flag. Please don't do it because it's endorsed by Oprah. It's just not a good idea. But this is what feeds the ego. And then the ego's like, this is the thing. And then in your heart, you're like, well, maybe I should actually get some support to deal with the, and you're just like, no, you just need more willpower. Just need to try harder. You don't need help with that. Like that's uncomfortable. You don't want to deal with that. You just follow the diet. That's the easy thing. That'll promise you the fastest results. And because we're conditioned for fast results, a lot of us will keep picking the quick fixes, but then we keep suffering and struggling until we go, you know what? That's not working anymore. I think I do want to take an approach where it's not about fast results. It's about results, but it is about the healing and about dealing with this for good and making the lifestyle changes and dealing with the mindset, right? Or then maybe it's like you've had so much conditioned into your brain about like counting points and calories and things like that. And you're like, well, Weight Watchers says that avocados are bad because they're like infinite points and I can't have infinite points or I'll gain weight. But then it tells you that this, I don't know, like something full of garbage chemical ingredients is like 2 points and is good for you. So yeah, I'm going to have the thing with 2 points, but the avocado is no good because it's over my points and I don't want to gain weight. Like that's ego programmed, right? I can't have, right? Cashew butter because it's too high in calories. We can't gain weight. You need to work out 7 days a week because if you don't work out 7 days a week, you're not going to lose weight and you're not going to get the muscle mass and you're not going to be able to fit into that dress. Like this is the of the ego. If you slow down your workouts to try and balance your hormones, you're going to gain weight. Oh my gosh, you can't do that. You're going to lose control with your body. Right? I remember I was to the point where I was binge eating and I was terrified to go to a restaurant and eat out for fear of losing control. You can't eat out anymore, Amber, because if you do, you're going to binge and then you're going to like lose control for the next few weeks. And then throw some fatigue on top of that. I'm tired. It's been a busy day. I don't care. We're eating whatever we want. Let's go here. I vividly remember this one experience. My first retail job, I had lost a bunch of weight and the binge eating had just started. It was the summer of 2009. And gosh, I was so bored of this job. Like no one ever came into the store. And I had went out with friends the night before and we stayed up quite late. I mean, I was 22 at the time, right? So in my glory years. So we stayed up quite late. And then I had to get up a couple hours later and go to my job. And I'm like, I'm so effing tired. And my ego's like, well, you're so tired. Who cares? Like you're on your break, go to the food court, get a Blizzard, get some chocolates, get a bagel from Starbucks and get like the extra large, whatever frappe thing that's got like 100 grams of sugar because you need the energy. You're only going to be able to stay awake if you eat all this stuff and have things that keep you distracted. So I buy all this stuff and I'm sitting the back of the store trying to stay awake. No one's coming in. And I eat it all. And I'm like, oh, I feel like garbage. And my ego's like, I can't believe you did that. I can't believe you did that, but you did it already. So on the way home, you better get this and this. And I'm like, my ego's like planning what I should buy on the way home to binge. Or it's like, I'm tired. It's been a busy day. I don't care what I'm eating. I don't care that this is going to make me feel like crap. I don't care that I'm going to binge. I don't care about my body. I don't care about my health. Ego's just like, I don't care. You need reward. You need this. So that ego really fuels that I don't care mentality. And when we're tired and we're stressed and we're already overwhelmed, it's very easy for our ego to get ramped up more and get triggered more for us to, have that negative self-talk be really loud. That ego gets really loud. Same if you try on an outfit and it doesn't fit properly. Oh my gosh, it doesn't friggin' fit. You need to try harder on your diet. What the heck is wrong with you? You might as well not go clothes shopping anymore because it's just terrible every time. It's just upsetting and disappointing. Like, why bother? Don't look at yourself in the mirror. Don't look at yourself in the mirror on the way out because if you're going to be upset for the rest of the day. Right? I just remember that. Or then the ego would be like, oh, you're down weight this week. So this week I'm going to give you permission to go and do what you want, but you can't gain weight and you need to keep this weight because we're going on a trip in a couple of weeks. And if you don't maintain this weight, we're not going on the trip. And it would be like, oh, you're down weight. Like you can love yourself now, but if you gain weight, we can't love you. Very superficial. And I remember when I was started to gain weight and I went to a co-ed gym and then my ego was like, oh my God, I hope nobody notices that I gained weight. Oh, I hope no one's looking at me. I hope no one sees that I've gained weight. Oh my gosh, look at that woman. She definitely gained weight. Judging self, judging others, right? She definitely gained weight. Oh my God, every time I see her, she's gained more weight. What's wrong with her? And then here I am gaining weight. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't go to the co-ed gym anymore because I don't want people to notice that I've gained weight. So I'm going to go to the women's only gym so no one can notice, or at least there's no guys there. Like that was my ego mentality. And I'll only go back to the co-ed gym once I'm below a certain weight. And that's what I would do. And love and compassion to me, because those were my insecurities, and love and compassion to you. But these are the things, right? Ego convincing you. You'll never be happy until you lose the weight. It doesn't matter what else is going on that's good for you in your life, or even if you're healthy, until you lose weight, you're never going to be happy. So like get that weight down. Once you lose weight, then you'll be happy. Then you can live your life. All ego, right? An example of people pleasing, right? You're like, okay, I'm not going to book anything else on my calendar this week. I'm full up and I'm already feeling overwhelmed about it. So if anyone else asks me for anything, it's going to be a no. And then your lovely neighbor, we'll just call her Lorna, shows up. If any of your name is Lorna, bless your soul. I love the name Lorna. Just got a nice roll off the RNA there. LORNA. Yeah. Okay. You could also, if you want to name your ego, you can name your ego. I've had a lot of clients name their ego and be like, oh, Rosie kicked up a stink last night, right? It just adds a bit of humor. We want to try and add a little bit of lightness to this because it can be really intense. But Lorna, your neighbor, your lovely neighbor, you go out to wash your car and Lorna's out and she's like, hey, how are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm great, Lorna. How are you? She's like, good, good. She's like, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, yeah, I'm pretty busy. I'm doing this, doing that. And I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, oh, I'm moving actually. You're like, oh, where to? And you're like, oh, yeah, over here. And then she's like, you wouldn't by chance want to help me this weekend, would you? And then you feel your ego come in and be like, you better say yes because you don't want to let her down. You don't want her to get upset at you. If you say no, you're going to let her down. And the treater's like, oh, you said you weren't going to say yes to anything else, but because you're giving your power away to your ego and the people pleasing and the fear of, upsetting others, you're like, I can totally help you move. And internally you're like, no, like I'm beyond stressed out. And Lorna's like, thank you so much. It's not Lorna's fault. And you're like, oh my God. And then you're just like, I can't believe you said yes. And then it's like, but your ego convinced you to say yes. And the ego's like, I got you. I have control. I run the show. See, look, you couldn't say no. Right? Comparison. Oh my gosh, look at her. Look at him. Look at how, like, if you're a dude and you're like, oh my gosh, look at how big his arms are. The woman's like, oh my gosh, look at how flat her stomach is. Oh my gosh, look at how beautiful she is. I'll never be that good. I'm not good enough. Right? Self-judgment. Oh my gosh. Have I ever been hard on myself sometimes? My ego, right? I remember certain circumstances with Phil, like being vulnerable. I'm like, oh my God, if I'm vulnerable, my ego's like, if you're vulnerable, you're going to like expose these weak parts of yourself and he won't love you anymore. And it's false, but this is the fears that we have and the stories the ego tells us. And then I'm like, oh, and then I procrastinate, like sharing certain things or certain fears or certain, just like my own insecurities. And then finally those circumstances would come up and I'd finally be vulnerable and it would be fine. And we have so much unnecessary fear and worry, false evidence appearing real that never comes to fruition. But the ego convinces us that the worst case scenarios are going to happen, and they usually never do. And even if we've had bad things happen, we can heal from them and do our best to leave them in the past and to work to do this mindset work and create a different reality. And then I'm like, I got to have more faith in myself and I got to put more faith in others because I am so well received. And it's my ego, the story in my mind from past experiences and my wounded inner child that I need to nourish and support and nurture. Right? I'll leave you with a couple last ones with money. Oh my God, I'm never going to have enough. Oh my God, I have to pay the bill. Oh my God, my bank account dropped below this amount of money. Oh my gosh. I want to start a business. No, too difficult. I don't want to start a business. The money, I don't know. Right? I want to invest in my health, but oh my gosh, it scares me spending that money. I hear you. Sometimes it's the right time, sometimes it's not. Use your intuition. But the more into a lack mentality we get, the more we worry about money, the more we put this fear, this worry, get emotionally involved with what we don't want, the easier it is to manifest, versus when we get emotionally involved with what we want. That's how we start creating it, even if we don't have it yet. We're powerful creators. You do not realize how powerful you are. So dealing with the ego is really important to help you take your power back and help you do this really deep work. So mastering your ego helps you overcome emotional eating. It helps bring more abundance, more success, more love, incredible relationships, openness, willingness to deal with your stuff. It helps the physical body heal. You gain more energy. Your digestion gets better. You're more confident, humble, and grateful. This is about gratitude and being humble. And I'm so humbled by my ego and everything I've learned, because everything I learned, I can teach to you. And that I want to do that. That's why we're here. But the ego can be really intense. So if you are wanting to learn more about your ego, start building the awareness of what it feels like when you give your power away, when you take your power back. What are your constant negative thoughts and limiting beliefs? What energy or emotions do you spend most of your energy in? How do you want to feel instead? How do you want your thoughts and mindset to look like? How would it feel if you had tools and support to learn how to take your power back? And how would it feel if you spent more time living in a calmer state of mind? How would it feel if you knew how to manage your ego when your emotional eating triggers came up? So when it was like, who cares if you meditate right now? Like, you're going to give into food later, and you knew how to call it out and go, yeah, thanks for your opinion. And I'm not going and giving into food later. I know that's what you want, but I'm managing through. I don't need that. Right? That is so powerful to get to that place. So I'd suggest you start with these things, doing these journal prompts, building awareness with your ego. If you already know that you want more support to deal with your ego mindset and help you to food and body freedom, the door is open. Welcome. Come and join me for a 30-minute body freedom consultation. We can talk more about all of this, like I talked about earlier, and we can explore the path that could work the best to help you to food and body freedom. Keep listening to the podcast. There's many episodes where I talk about the ego mindset. There will be ego mindset courses. I know I was saying I was going to launch Ego Mastery this fall. It's probably going to come 2024 though. I'm really being mindful of how many things I launch. I think I launched a lot of things last year and into this year. And what I'm realizing is to manage my energy and my frequency, being mindful of how much. And I also want to see, a decent amount of people come through the door. So I'll probably put a lot of time and effort into preparing that sometime next year, which will be a group program. But in the interim, one-on-one is open if you want to come and receive support in the meantime. So I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. The show notes can be found at amberapproved.ca/podcast/435. You can go to amberapproved.ca, take the free emotional eating quiz if you're wondering if you're struggling, learn more about body freedom, access all the episodes of the podcast, as well as book your body freedom consultation. As I always say, there's no better time than the present to take action on your health, your ego mind, taking your power back. So take action now. Have a beautiful day, a great week. Sending you all so much love and cheering you on. You can all do this. You can all learn how to take our power back with our ego. The world's going to be a much better place because we all do this. So take action now, and we'll see you again for an entire new episode next Sunday. Take care.